The other day I did a video about Sony opening up and potentially buying another studio or possibly even publisher, and it looks like that might be happening sooner than we even anticipated. If you didn't see that video, basically the whole crux of it was Sony recently hired an acquisition lawyer, someone who is very big on doing acquisitions for big companies, and he was actually a former Microsoft dude, and now we see him coming over to the Sony side, and clearly Square Enix being directly in Sony's line of sight. Now, there were rumors months and months ago that Sony was super interested in buying Square Enix, but that they only wanted like the Japanese side of things. They didn't care for the Western side of things, with the Deus Exes, the Tomb Raiders, and things like that. Definitely more interested in, the Final Fantasies and Kingdom Hearts, which makes a lot of sense because if you look at something like Kingdom Hearts or Final Fantasy, this next Kingdom Hearts is a timed PlayStation exclusive, although they put no kind of information about when we could expect it on Xbox. Even something like Forspoken is a 2-year timed exclusive on PlayStation 5, and Xbox owners still waiting for Final Fantasy VII Remake, even though the second part of that is going to come out on PlayStation next year, and also Final Fantasy 16 is a PlayStation exclusive. So clearly big deals going on there, and by way of this information, it does seem very plausible, if not something that is in fact imminent to happen. Sony clearly had to wait for some of their other deals to go through, like Bungie, I think, probably being the biggest one. Another reason why potentially it looks like they got rid of the Western side of the of the coin, the crystal dynamics and things like that. I'm not sure how this has to go through with the FTC and things like that, but if they're buying like Japanese side of things, I'm not sure that the FTC will have much say, if at all, any say, right? So it would be a relatively smooth transition for Sony, and then I could imagine that those games going forward would be exclusive, since Sony's paying so much money for exclusivity anyway. It's going to be weird to see how that kind of all works out and pans out, but this is kind of breaking news, and this was an article in Game Industry Biz, and they're usually really on top of the ball, and they were actually interviewing a former employee of Square Enix who was talking about this. And like I always say, where there's smoke, there's fire. We keep hearing something, hearing about it. Obviously, it's going to be something that's happening, And listen, I feel like at the end of the day, Sony's going to do what they're going to do. They need something like this, right? I'm not saying that they're in trouble or something along those lines. I'm just saying that Sony, to compete more with Microsoft with the Activision deal, with the Bethesda deal, they're going to need something big, and I feel like this could be very, very big for them, and I think it could lead to some pretty incredible things down the road, but they have to kind of get this out there first. So that's the thing that I kind of want to talk about, and I want to get into this video right now. It's going to be an interesting video. If you guys are watching the video and you enjoy my videos, like them. I'm going for 100 likes for each video. Now this maybe if I could reach that plateau, I would be but it is very much appreciative. So it's not a lot, to be honest with
Western
you.
Studios.
I just would very much appreciate
and this
it.
guy
So please
is
like
an
the video.
IDOS
Montreal founder, and his name is Stefan, I believe, and it reflects on the issues he believed that caused the actual sales. Stefan was surprised by the price tag that they actually sold him for, but he wasn't terribly surprised at how the studio's relationship with Square turned out, saying the roots of the demise were evident even before he left the company. He says it was a trajectory that could be predicted. He told Game Industry Biz, "I left because things were missing at head office. Eidos has a great tradition of development teams, and they don't have superior knowledge of how to sell their games, and that was quite clear. You could look at all the great games that Eidos did, and apart from Tomb Raider back then, that was a whole different era. The Hitmans and all those could have been a 6, 7, 8 million unit project. Deus Ex could have been that also. We hit good numbers, don't get me wrong, but I always felt that the way to sell games that Eidos were used to were so traditional and conventional that it wasn't innovative, and it was always underselling the quality of games." He says, I hoped when Square Enix purchased Eidos in 2009 that would change things. But Eidos was founded 2 years before Square acquired the UK publisher, and at the time only the fourth major studio in Montreal, alongside Behavior Interactive and teams from Ubisoft and Electronic Arts. The studio was structured to have 3 production pipelines, kicking off with revivals of Deus Ex, Thief, and the reboot of Tomb Raider. It was clear that the main purpose of Eidos was to increase capacity of production or development capacity within the group, because Crystal Dynamics are branded like a mono project studio, as was IO Interactive. Stefan explains Montreal was there to save the back catalog. It was clear that we had great IPs that were sleeping on the shelf. Legacy of Kain, that was discussed, but wasn't as strong as Deus Ex and Thief. 2011's Deus Ex Human Revolution, the studio's first release, garnered critical acclaim and put Eidos on the map. The 2014 Return of Thief was less well received. Although he says they did their best, if they would have had another 11 months, it could have been a great game. So yeah, he kind of goes into basically and in talking about what's going on with, Sony. He says it's a train that's slowing down and needs some injection of energy or money or something, but the train is slowing down. And it's unfortunate because there are a lot of good people in those studios. He explained, if I read between the lines, Square Enix Japan was not as committed as we'd hoped initially, and there are rumors, obviously, that with all these activities of mergers and acquisition, that Sony would really like to have Square Enix in their wheelhouse. I heard rumors that Sony said they're really interested in Square Enix Tokyo, but not the rest. So I think Square Enix, Mr. Matsuda-san, put it like a garage sale. Stefan suggests it may explain the $300 million price tag for 3 AAA studios and a host of long-running IP, including the blockbuster Tomb Raider franchise. By comparison, Embracer purchased Gearbox in a deal worth $1.3 billion. They have about 1,000 staff. Eidos has about 1,000, according to him. They have basically Borderlands and others, and Eidos have 5 times the IP, so why 4 times less? I guess they weren't a lot of people interested, and it shows the health of value of potential Eidos, unfortunately. It was a train wreck in slow motions. It was predictable that the train was not going to be going in a good direction, and maybe that justified $300 million. That's really not a lot. It doesn't make sense. He's unsure about how much of Eidos Studios underperformed, but he attributed to Square Enix management in Japan, but he does maintain that some of the bad decisions did come from London as well. So yeah, he's basically said he's heard rumors here that it was going to be Sony interested, and I understand that, and I think that would be a tremendous thing. I just also feel like if Sony was doing that, then listen, I think that would be huge for the PlayStation 5. But is that going to be something that actually happens? I think we're going to keep we got to keep our eyes open and our ears open, because I think that if something's going to happen, it's probably going to happen pretty soon. With that being said, I'm going to link this. You guys can check it out. Let me know what you think. Rack 'em up, fact 'em up, crap gamer 'em up, crap gamer out.